Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Forged by Trust podcast. I am your host, retired head of the FBI Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program and recognized trust expert Robin Dreeke. Welcome to this very special key takeaway and gratitude episode. I'm going to recap the last 10 amazing guests and their incredible knowledge, as well as give thanks for them sharing with us. As always, please like the show as well as leave a review on your favorite streaming platform so that more people can benefit from this amazing knowledge my guests have generously shared with us. Because as my good friend and first guest, Joe Navarro, always says, if we have at least one bit of information another human being can benefit from, it is our responsibility to get it to them. And with that, we can change the world, and maybe with just one podcast at a time. So, additionally, if you're looking to further your skills in forging your own trust and success, I have two great strategies and takeaways for you, and also to help us keep the lights on, and that is number one, check out my first best-selling book, It's Not All About Me, the Top 10 Techniques for Quick Rapport with Anyone. It is also now available in Audible. I'm very excited about that. I recorded it myself, and I revalidated all the great tools and techniques in that, as well as I included the episode with my good friend Jack Shafer, the truth detector, all about elicitation at the end. So check that out and get that book and share it with others. And number two, and this is truly exciting, my past guest and now great friend Judy Ryan, who we'll recap here in a few minutes, and I are hosting an exclusive event for the first 12 executives that sign up for our Evolving Leader 4-part virtual series. This Evolving Leader 4-part series includes 8 topics as in limited to those 12 executives and senior leaders seeking knowledge, resources, and implementation of best practices to achieve and maintain a very competitive advantage. So please take a look at the details in the show notes and reach out to me if you need to, robin@peopleformula.com if you have any questions whatsoever. Now, sit back, relax, enjoy this short recap, and take a lot of notes if you need to. First up is my great friend, mentor, teacher, and guide, the amazing Joe Navarro. Joe and I met about 20 years ago when I first joined our FBI Behavioral Analysis Program team. He has been generous enough to continue to teach and mentor and guide me all these years. Here are just a few takeaways from Joe's amazing episode.
That's what exceptional people have in common. But the one thing that troubled me for years was what underpins all humans. What underpins all humans? What is it that we seek? And what I found interesting was that humans don't really seek perfection. And the one element that is universal that all humans seek is psychological comfort. And whoever provides that is the soonest winner. It goes to show you that it's very easy to ignore things, but life is so much better for you when we don't. When we pay attention to the people around us, that they may or may not be able to help us, but what does it take? 5 seconds to say, hey guys, good to see you again. And, and as I'm talking to these groups, one of my questions that I always ask is, who here wants to be average? And interestingly enough, no one ever raises their hand. I will tell you this, there was one time when I think somebody woke up, they were nudged and they started to raise their hand and somebody said, no, you don't want to raise your hand to that question. And as you know, as it turns out, in the end, there were really only 5 things that the exceptional have in common, but consistent with the code of trust. Trust is reliability.
Right.
Trust is consistency.
Yep.
Trust is truth.
Yep.
And that is part of that mastery, that you can't go linear that way until you handle that here.
Right.
Because everything will fall apart.
Once again, I just want to thank Joe from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show and sharing his amazing insights into the 5 traits of the exceptional people in life. The next episode was with Maria Ross. Maria is the master of empathy and her background, origin story, resilience and brilliance, and ability to bring empathy to the work environment is truly inspirational. Not a day goes by when I don't think of the lessons she has shared with me and the audience. So again, sit back and listen to these great clips from Maria's episode.
The Empathy Edge is really a book about talking about the competitive advantage of empathy for leaders, for brands, for teams. But it was also my Trojan horse of trying to make the world more empathetic by at least starting with something tangible, showing people that there's a benefit to being empathetic. Empathy is about being able to see and understand things from someone else's point of view. So take you out of the equation and try to see a situation or a debate or an event through another person's point of view. And in some cases, where appropriate, to feel those feelings if you can relate. But empathy doesn't require you to actually have gone through something exactly like that person has gone through. It requires you to use cognitive empathy, which is about using your brain to think about what would it be like if I was in that situation, or what might that person be thinking, or what is that person's context. The data and the research show that empathy does improve the bottom line. It does make leaders more successful. It does cause more innovation if you have an empathetic culture, which makes sense because if you see, hear, and value people, they're going to do their best work. They're going to be free to be creative. They're going to be free to invent, and you're going to have a much better work environment. So in order to put your defensiveness aside so you can get curious, you have to be present. But once you are, instead of hitting people with, again, here's why I'm right and you're wrong, it's tell me more about that. I've discovered that 3-word phrase is magical.
My heartfelt thanks again to Maria for coming on the show and showing us the power, importance, and relevancy of empathy in our everyday life, both personally and professionally. Next up is episode 3. And I can't even begin to show my gratitude to both Joe Navarro for introducing us, as well as Abbie Maroño herself for taking the time to share her incredible research and insights into nonverbal behavior of trust and just about anything else having to do with human beings. Hands down, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life, with the keenest ability to both observe others and engage. Sit back, relax, and enjoy some of these clips from The Body Language of Trust.
So when we look at the lower body, literally just moving my foot towards you versus away from you changes how approachable I appear. And these are things that we can change on our own body language. So if I want to appear more approachable, when someone's coming towards me, I angle my body towards them and I widen my arms, I widen even my fingers versus having my fingers close together. That has an effect on approachability.
If someone is looking to forge better trust by utilizing some of your observation tools and techniques, what would you recommend first?
I would say always remember that for the brain, safety is trust. So when you're looking how to create trust with someone, don't think, how do I make this person trust me? Think, how do I make this person feel safe enough to put their trust in me? And the first thing, and it sounds so simple, smile. It's so exciting because it opens up this whole new field, and it actually makes you realize human beings, we're not designed to look for deception. We're not designed to be manipulative. It gives you some kind of hope in the human race because we really are designed to be cooperative.
So how do we get better at it?
Practice, awareness. It's like anything. Like if you want to be a good tennis player, you learn all of the cues, you learn the rules, you know exactly how to do it, but you won't just step out on, the court and go, I'm a fabulous tennis player, I'm world class because I've learned the rules perfectly. You have to practice and practice and practice, and you have to apply it. And it's the same with showing cues of trustworthiness. You have to learn the cues and learn what people look for, learn why, and practice it, and put it in your everyday life, make it part of who you are.
Once again, my thanks to Abbie for coming on the show, sharing those amazing insights, as well as coming on again in a later episode and together with our friend Joe Navarro for a special episode that'll be released in a few weeks as well. So again, thanks, Abbie. And up next is episode 4 with my amazing friend and master of all things verbal and written, Jack Schafer. Jack and I met at the same time that I first met Joe Navarro those years ago. They were and are great cohorts of the world of human engagement with their own focus and mastery. Jack is the preeminent authority on elicitation in the world, in my opinion, and what he cleverly calls truth detection. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these clips with the amazing Jack Schafer. How do you define manipulation, and where does elicitation fall on that scale?
Well, there's two sides to elicitation. You can use it for good, and you can, like, we all want the best out of life. We want the best deals we can get. We want the best relationships we can get. We want to be able to negotiate in the business world. We want to get the best products that we can negotiate for. And a lot of that information is kind of closely held information. So if we had access to that information, we can use it for good and get the best out of life. Now, the bad side is con men use these same techniques to elicit information from people to steal their identity and steal money from them ultimately.
What do you think are the top, 2 to 3 techniques that people either fall victim to or that are the most effective when dealing with human beings?
I think the number one technique is the human predisposition to correct other people, because we as humans want to be right. And when we correct other people, that elevates us above the person we're correcting. So that makes us feel good because we know more than the other person that we're talking to. So that kind of elevates us. And in order to kind of prove that we're more superior, we often give out a lot of information that perhaps we shouldn't. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that I've taken that through my life. Try to, the one motto I picked up along the way is when I meet somebody, I just want to make their day just that little bit better than it was before meeting me. And I think that's a good way to look at when we meet people, because then it's about making them feel good about themselves.
Once again, my gratitude for my good friend Jack Schafer for coming on the show and sharing his techniques surrounding the skill set of elicitation, or what he loves to call truth detection. Up next is episode 5. I can't even begin to express my gratitude for my new good friend Judy. Judy has quickly gone from podcast guest to partner in bringing her incredible business insights and experience to the world. She is a positive problem solver who values relationships and partnerships above all else, and it is a true honor to be co-hosting our amazing new 4-week virtual course together, so make sure you check that out in the show notes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these clips with Judy as she talks about applying our core needs of being empowered, lovable, connected, and contributing.
What is a healthy culture? It's a responsibility-based, purpose and value-based kind of organization where the goal is to mentor and empower people, not manage them, control them, motivate them. It sounds great to say, well, I'm a manager, I'm supposed to manage them. No, you're not. You're supposed to help them become self-managing. So in our world, a healthy culture is one where there is the minimal or elimination of the power structures of hierarchy. That does not mean that there aren't certain authorities in positions of, responsibility, but in terms of the dynamics of a lot of the decision making and the power that is used within an organization, it's the goal is to have as much shared power as possible. Because what traditionally happens in companies is that the titled leaders get all of that leadership development training, and it's almost thought as if it's impossible to train everyone or to mentor everyone. And that's about as crazy as saying we can't all have a cell phone. But it's almost like, the mentality, the mentality hasn't caught up. Yes, we can have everybody trained and have the same common language and tools, but the bottom of the house, the foundation, is trustworthiness. So lovable to me is really crucially overlooked. You could be the most loving leader in the world, but if you don't know how to make people feel seen and heard, they will suffer and they will cost you. So curiosity and compassion and openness and receptivity is all part of likable and lovable. Connected sounds like a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't feel connected. They don't feel invited. They don't feel included. They don't even know how to do it. I had a friend call me that started a new job recently, and she said, I don't feel like anybody's very welcoming. And I said, you're already in attack mode to them. You already have them in the monster box. I encourage you to say in your head, I love these people. I love this company. I love them. And she went in the next day and did that. And she said, oh my God, I had a completely different day.
My thanks again to Judy Ryan for all she had to share with us and our amazing new friendship that we have forged. Who needs a hug? Up next is episode 6 with the amazing CK Goldiing, who creates amazing stories that move people. CK became a quick friend who has generously shared his gift of seeing the beauty in us all with the world. When we first met, I immediately checked out his award-winning film 61 Hugs and couldn't believe my luck in being able to have him on the show to share his gift with you all. I binge-watched all he had to offer, and if you are looking to feel inspired, I highly recommend you do the same also. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some of these great human observations and insights from CK Goldiing.
I just remember being very young, being fascinated by how to engage people. Every conceivable way, I'm obsessed with engaging people on their level, not mine.
That is probably one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever heard anyone say.
So there's an interesting balance there of recognizing how I can accomplish my goal, but the only way I can accomplish my goal is actually being sensitive to your needs.
You have this ability to naturally forge trust, which is about making it about others.
I always want to make sure that I leave that interaction having used the word I as few times as possible. But I want to make sure I leave every interaction, Robin, with the U's at 7-1 with the I's. I've known me for 42 years. So by talking about me, I'm not going to learn anything new. I already know me. So while I'm talking about me, what am I learning? But the more I'm hearing someone else talk, the more I'm learning about them, their thoughts, their hopes, their dreams, ambitions, drivers, just on a human level. And it's very scarce that in any given interaction, people feel more important than anything else in the room. If you give that to someone, it's a special feeling and they'll never forget it. I can just imagine your listeners ending this podcast and they can try immediately and they'll be stunned by the impact that it generates.
Yes.
And let me just conclude, Robin, by managing everybody's expectations, because what you and I have just done is given people 3 fun little tools they can go out and use instantly. But if they're anything like me, they're probably thinking, which one should I use first? Should I use them all? I don't know. But I just want to manage people's expectations and let them know the one that they're going to struggle with the most. And you kind of just alluded to it now, Robin. I can guarantee of the I Spy technique, the phone call reject technique, and the squeeze the silence technique, the one you're going to find the most difficult is squeeze the silence, because it's almost working against our physiological drivers that have been cultivated over thousands of years. You know, we're not keen on silence.
My deep appreciation and gratitude again for CK coming into my life and our lives and sharing his beautiful insights into human nature and human behaviors that he sees and we all see and encounter every day, and how to make everyone's life just a little bit better for having met us. Wow, just wow. That's all I can really say about episode 7 with my new most unlikely of friends, Jack Barsky. Again, as I just said, Jack has become one of my closest friends, and hence the title, My Enemy, My Friend, from this episode. He gives us all such a great gift of context. Growing up in post-World War II East Germany and recruited to be a deep cover spy for the Soviet Union is only a tip of his complex iceberg. Many insightful layers that we will all continue to learn from throughout this episode and every interaction that we have with Jack. So tune in and listen to this intriguing story.
I had a very limited view of an insider into a rather small sliver of what the KGB did, which is, undercover illegal. And they shared with me just as much as they thought I would need to be functional. A lot of the things that I now know to be true, I sort of pieced together based on some pieces of the puzzle. And if I had some time to reflect, that as competent they were in the tradecraft, they were just as incompetent in understanding the country that they spied upon, the United States, and capitalism per se. I went to school, kindergarten, elementary school, and right from the start, there was nothing but ideological brainwashing. I mean, we learned about the greatness of Karl Marx and Lenin in kindergarten, in language that little kids can understand. And it went on and on and on. So it was very smart. I mean, the communists knew that they had to raise a generation that was buying into the communist ideal. I also showed them early on that I would never lie to them.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, so because there's a couple of times where I admitted mistakes that they wouldn't have known if I hadn't told them.
Yep.
So you put this all together, and I was ideologically sound. You put this all together, I was an ideal candidate.
If you could leave, people with a lasting impression of what's important in you in your life.
Well, it is applicable to where we are in this world today. And I get this asked occasionally, what's my opinion with what's going on in the United States right now, based on the experience that I've had in life, growing up under socialism, communism, understanding how one can be drawn into this idea, and also understanding that the history of of every attempt that was made that could have been initially quite honest and sincere to build a better society based on collectivism has always wound up in dictatorships. And whoever thinks that would be different in this country is wrong.
My thanks again for Jack coming on the show and sharing his amazing, intriguing background and insights into both the past world and the world he's encountering today. Up next is episode 8 and my very good friend, Dan Hoffman. Dan and I have been colleagues and friends since my days with the FBI and recruiting Russian spies in New York City. We had many great operations and strategy sessions those many years ago, and I was always so impressed with his ability to forge trust, relationships, and a vast network of contacts. Fast forward to the present, and I saw him giving some geopolitical commentary on TV and reached out. Needless to say, he was still the amazing human being I had known all those years ago, and we started collaborating anew. I quickly learned of the tragedy of his wife and the incredible challenge he faced and his absolutely incredible outlook on how to face life. His example of how to live is a model for us all. So sit back and listen to this heart-wrenching story about how this retired senior clandestine services officer for the CIA faces every challenge. I mean, how does that translate into what we can actually do on a daily basis, you think?
So I'll tell you a personal experience. I decided to retire in December 2016. My wife was diagnosed with cancer in January 2017. She fought hard and bravely for 4 years and passed away last year, March 15, 2021. And one of the things that I learned through that fight, and she was so brave and she fought for every second that she had because she knew she had to get me in a position where I could be a single parent and take care of our kids. There was nothing that I've ever done in my life that was more important than demonstrating to her before she passed away that I could do it. But I kind of divided things into 2 categories. Normally I go for things in 3s, but I got 2 for this one. It's just what you can control and what you can't. Yes. And there's a lot of things you can control and there's a lot of things that you can do. And the things you can't control, for example, my wife got cancer. I can't control that. I can control how we grieve.
But at your core, there's humanistic things about each of us that make us either more successful or less successful. And hands down, you are one of the best people at forging connections and networking I've ever met in my entire life. You inspire people to want to be part of your life because you do this thing, what Bob Berg wrote in the book called The Go-Giver. You bring immense value to relationships without expectation or reciprocity.
I think I had it in me somewhere, but the one thing I learned at CIA was that when we were faced with the most wickedly complex challenges, the mission was hard. We needed to reach out and just get as much help as we could from our friends, from our colleagues. And that's how I found that you could build a network of trust.
I want to thank Dan again for coming on the show and sharing his amazing life skills for forging great trust, relationships, and facing life's greatest challenges. Thanks, Dan. Up next is episode 9 with the Jedi Master of Marketing, Jennifer Filson. Jennifer is such an amazing human being and friend, as well as bona fide rock star. We met at a mutual friend's podcasting boot camp, Pablo Gonzalez, and became fast fans of each other's work. Her expertise in the marketing world is simple, straightforward, and 100% people and trust-based. Jennifer is a giver of great value with such generosity, a true gift. So sit back and relax and enjoy these clips with Jennifer.
Can you show love for your clients through your acts and through your business and through your values and principles? When you show love, and people are like, love in business? Yeah. Show your clients that you love them. That brings the positive energy that makes them feel like, wow, I had the best experience with this business, of like, ooh, okay. Are they showing love for their customers? Are they creating a warm and welcoming environment for their customers as soon as they walk in the door?
And here's why, because they're not demonstrating number one thing, which centers around what we're calling love, is when you walked in that front door, you're not feeling valued.
Correct.
Now, here's an interesting thing that human beings, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for effort and transparency. The result can actually be exactly the same. It's the way you're communicating it. That's demonstrating that love.
If you want to make sure that your business really thrives, you need to make sure that every single person on your team knows your why, so they can act in lockstep with the values of the company. It would also be really smart of you to let your vendors know what your why is, so they can be in lockstep and act accordingly. And then, of course, you got to let your clients know what your why is. And then they will fall in love with you and become your tribe because they resonate with your why. And then finally, your larger community, you need to let them know what your why is so they can come and support you. So you have to let everyone know what your why is if you want to thrive, because if you keep it a secret, they'll be left guessing.
My thanks again to Jennifer for sharing her marketing truth bombs with us during this fantastic episode. Rounding out the first 10 episodes of the Forged by Trust podcast is none other than the world-famous Bob Burg. Bob is going to share with us the laws of stratospheric success, and Bob is the co-author of the international bestseller, The Go-Giver, the most important parable about business life of our time, according to New York Times bestselling author Adam Grant, and I couldn't agree more. I was introduced to Bob's work by another good friend and podcast host / entrepreneur of the company, Partnernomics, Mark Brigman. Bob was gracious enough and was able to carve out some of his time from his packed calendar to shed his keys to that stratospheric success with us. Enjoy these great clips with Bob. What do you think is the greatest stumbling block people have?
Well, I think there's two of them. One is understanding that it isn't about you. And I know that sounds so basic and elementary, especially in light of what we're talking about. But the reason why this is so difficult to grasp is because it's human nature to be self-interested. Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. That's not what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. Really, when you think about it, it's about another person's life being better just because you are part of it. Start doing it. Be a go-getter, a person of action, as well as a go-giver, that person who is absolutely, totally focused on others. Just don't be a go-taker.
I love it.
And then stay persistent. Be persistent and know that no is unfortunately one of those real big ingredients on the way to yes.
And as you enumerate in your book, and it's actually part of the whole parable, teachers, mentors, and guides are great people to help us show us that path, but you have to have humility to be open to it. So
what a great point.
I just want to thank Bob and all my guests one more time. I hope I was able to honor the great points Bob just made and was able to bring great value to you all. Thanks again for tuning into the first 10 episode roundup. Tune in next week as I introduce you to Maureen Farmer in Forging Trust with the C-Suite.